Dear voters of Marsiling-Yew TGRC, please, let me ask you a simple question. Do you think it is safe to conduct elections now? Given the fact that voting is compulsory in Singapore, what are the chances of you getting infected by the COVID-19 virus when you go to the ballot boxes on 10th of July? PAP leaders claimed that they needed an election to rally the people together, and time is running out when elections are not due till April next year. What about Mr. Lawrence Wong? He co-chairs the COVID-19 Multi-Ministry Task Force. What did he say or advise his fellow cabinet on the decision to hold an election now? A decision which Singaporeans may pay a heavy price for after polling day. Now, even when a majority of Singaporeans have disagreed, and poll workers and voters were getting infected in the US and Israeli elections, with some even losing their lives, Mr. Lawrence Wong and his colleagues think like otherwise. They think it is the best time to call for elections now. The SDP has repeatedly called for the PAP to put the people first. The fourth years in our 4 years, 1 no campaign message. By insisting on calling for a general election in the midst of the COVID-19, the PAP shows that it is willing to sacrifice your health and safety for its own political interests. Can you afford that, my friends? Can you, your family, your children, and grandparents even afford to pay the price for the PAP's self-interest? So, my friends, when you see Mr. Lawrence Wong during the campaign, please query him on what basis should elections be called now, and if he is willing to be held responsible for the heavy price he may pay. Please also ask Mr. Wong to revisit the circuit breaker guidelines with you. He must have done on his fingertips. Then ask him for his views on his PAP colleagues flouting circuit breaker rules. Ask him why many ordinary folks on the streets were fined and politicians in other countries get punished, while his colleagues can go scot-free, right under his very nose. My friends, Mr. Wong claimed that he did not have the luxury of the benefit of hindsight when there was a spike in the foreign dormitory COVID-19 cases. Well, Mr. Wong, I'm giving you the luxury of the benefit now. With foresight and hindsight, I'm telling you that you and your PAP colleagues are putting the public at risk with your decisions and actions. My friends, please also do not forget to ask him about his previous running mate, Madam Halimah Yacob, who abandoned the faith of the Marsiling-Yew voters for the Istana. Many residents told us that they felt a betrayal of trust, and to rub salt in their wounds, the court ruled against the idea of a by-election, which denied the voters a chance to elect a replacement minority MP. The public was told that the 3 remaining Chinese MPs could take care of the GRC. Please, my friends, go ahead and ask Mr. Wong if there's a need for the GRC system to prevail, since it was established to ensure minority representation. Please also ask Mr. Wong if Chua Chu Kang GRC MP, Mr. Zaki Mohamad, had adequately taken care of Marsiling when he was appointed as the advisor to take over Madam Halimah. Now you see, Mr. Zaki is a very busy man. He holds 2 heavy Minister of State portfolios and even has his own get-home ward to look after. Now, unless his clock is different from ours, he could not have possibly given his undivided attention to Marsiling residents, could he? And speaking of Mr. Zaki, look at what some of the residents have sent us. Mouth-watering, isn't it? Promise of upgrading this, upgrading that, building additional sheltered linkways, etc. The question is, why now? Why not do this before the elections? The PAP's Marsiling-Yew team could have improved your lives after they beat our team in the 2015 general elections. You gave them a 68.7% mandate to make your lives better. Therefore, it is your very right as a resident to receive these goodies before the elections, not after. What happened to the PAP's 2015 campaign slogan, "With you, for Singapore"? My friends, do you still want the PAP to continue to insult your intelligence? Speaking of upgrading, I took up the issue of lift upgrading program for the residents of Block 115 and 119 Marsiling-Yew with Mr. Lawrence Wong in early December last year. Yes, him again. He happens to be both the Minister of National Development and an MP of Marsiling-Yew. Then the incumbent for the ward, Mr. Ong Teng Koon, pasted this notice below the void decks a few weeks after I had written to Mr. Wong. Mr. Ong claimed that he had heard the residents' concerns. Well, he has been the MP since 2011. Surely he will have heard them for the past 9 years. Yet, Mr. Ong has not been able to achieve anything. Now he patronizingly tells the residents that we are making good progress and HDB will provide an update as soon as possible. Now, I mentioned this lift upgrading issue over and over again on my Facebook. I highlighted the plight of handicapped and elderly residents who badly need the lifts to stop at every floor. I gathered the residents of both blocks to submit a joint petition. I even started an online petition. And we submitted both petitions to Mr. Wong. I had also convinced the residents staying on lift floors to sign the petition too, because the SDP believes that community is not just about nice gardens, beautiful community centers, and linkways. It is about fostering that kampong spirit, that gotong royong, by building a community where the residents truly care for one another. However, the PAP team thinks likewise. Repeatedly, they use cost as a convenient excuse to deny not just the residents of Block 115 and 119 Marsiling-Yew the lift upgrading, but also the residents staying in hundreds other HDB blocks from other parts of Singapore too. My friends, but why? Why must everything be calculated in dollars and cents? What about the safety of your elderly folks, disabled family members, and your babies? You have shared with me that you did not ask for fanciful structures, which are basically white elephants lining your estate, and rather that the money be spent on lift upgrading. After more than 10 years, and after I led a petition for the residents, Mr. Ong then told the media, well, that it's only a matter of time before the lifts are upgraded. When pressed by the media, Mr. Ong said, so what was the solution offered by Mr. Lawrence Wong? A $30,000 grant for affected residents to relocate. Many affected residents were disenchanted by the solution offered. Well, it was basically putting a square peg in a round hole. My friends, who is going to take care of your moving expenses? Will you be adequately compensated since it is harder to sell your flats with lift issues? Where are you going to move to? What about the older folks who have lived in the area for decades? Will they be able to uproot and adjust to their new environment? It is very irresponsible for Mr. Wong and Mr. Ong to have such an unthinkable suggestion. My friends, do they really care or even understand you? And Mr. Ong, what happened to your "we hear you" now that you have decided not to contest in these elections? You promised the residents to find a solution, and I wanted to ask you about that in this campaign. I also wanted to ask you about the rat, mosquito, and cockroach infestations in your ward. Look at what the residents have sent me. They told me that you did not act upon them, despite several feedback. Mr. Ong, are you running away because you cannot find a solution? Or is running away your solution? My friends, it is important that you vote wisely in this coming election. If you vote for the PAP, it means that you're willing to sacrifice the health of you and your family for the PAP's political interests. It means that you endorse the one country, two systems, that you agree that the PAP MPs should be treated differently from ordinary citizens. If you cast your vote for the PAP, it means that you don't require minority representation in Marsiling-Yew. And certainly, you don't mind the PAP insulting your intelligence. However, if you believe that people should come before profits, wisdom before wealth, and rights before riches, and you believe that the SDP will make the PAP put your interests first, then please, vote for me and my colleagues on 10th of July. If you believe in the work I've done on the leave upgrading program when I'm outside of Parliament, you believe that I can do even more when I'm elected as an MP, please, vote for the SDP on polling day. 4 yes, 1 no. Thank you.
Ali, a Singaporean who has worked for 20 years at front desk of hotels, recently lost his job. This was after he started a new position where he only lasted 4 months. Why did this happen? Because the manager who was brought in to implement cost-cutting measures cut costs via pay reduction of new hires. Ali was asked to resign to make way for this cost-cutting measure. He refused, citing lack of adherence to MOM protocols. Eventually, he was terminated with 1 month's notice. Ali has 4 children, a wife who works in childcare and has since been struggling to make ends meet. His concern has been house payments, food for the family, expenses for children's education, and utility bills. He has cut back and dropped all other expenditures. This does not include, however, standing concerns and responsibilities to elderly parents. This is a familiar story. Singaporeans all around the island face these problems. The situation has become even worse with the PAP's mishandling of the COVID-19 pandemic. Even if we are employed, we find ourselves being underwaged, struggling to meet the high cost of living. This is PAP's Singapore now, where we are reduced to taking low-paying temporary jobs, which we compete with many people and receive low wages or commissions. Even with this, at the end of the day, we find we are not able to cover operating costs or meet the cost of living. Increasingly, in PAP's Singapore, there is no job security, retirement safety, or a clear future for our children and loved ones. Government handouts to date are insufficient to solve long-term problems. Even to get their handouts, we have to lose our dignity on the way. Here we come to the crux of the matter. Can we use the economic model of attracting FDI and cheap labor, which is as old as the PAP? Certainly not. The PAP government's response has only been to pause the economy and restrict people's movement. It has not taken effective actions to address problems that came to light and have remained with us. Rising cost of living, population density, healthcare and housing affordability, poverty and inequality, a weak social security system and pension system, and a concern for our environment. Even with the slew of COVID-19 measures, the slack in the labor market is expected to increase as businesses make adjustments by reducing working hours, putting employees on no-pay leave, reduce workers' salary, or simply letting them go. This is why the SDP campaign this election is about 4 yes, 1 no for a better Singapore. First, yes to suspending GST during the pandemic, as GST is a regressive tax that will hurt the poor more than the rich. 2, yes to retrenchment benefits. It provides temporary assistance to those retrenched for up to 18 months. This is designed to get them back up on their feet. 3, Yes to income for retirees, a monthly payment of $500 for those above 65, which in turn will ease the burden on their children. 4, yes to responsible governance, not the irresponsible behavior we have been seeing calling for an election during this pandemic. And no to a 10 million population. Such density impacts our transport, social, environmental, and health infrastructure, and it increases the risk of future pandemics. COVID-19 has inflicted considerable damage to the economy and our families' well-being. PAP's mishandling of the pandemic has made it worse. A post-COVID-19 Singapore calls for a substantially different approach to governance, and this election is an opportunity to shape our shared future. The pandemic's impact needs us to re-envision the society that Singapore aspires to be. The current trickle-down approach to health and prosperity needs to be replaced by a vision of a society that provides strong safety nets for all of its people. The new vision would require a rethink of a Singapore that is caring, a neutral and administratively efficient state that provides essential services unfettered by a sense of allegiance to the PAP. This is important. But let's come back to Ali, who was impacted by the COVID-19 layoffs. As Singaporeans, even if we are not in Ali's situation, we need to exercise empathy to right the system that would inflict this situation on others. There is Madam Tan, Mr. Raju, Uncle D'Souza, and many others who are suffering. If we do not step up to address their concern, the socio-economic divide in Singapore will only increase. In the next few days, the SDP candidates and I will be developing some of the ideas and solutions outlined in this speech today. Please watch our videos and share our message. Vote for the SDP. It's time to reset Singapore. 4 yes, 1 no. Thank you.
Hey, are you see me?
Hi, good evening. I'm from the SDP. My name is Jufri Sa.
Oh, hello, madam. Yeah, I'm calling from the SDP. My name is...
Life of a fundraiser is very kanko. Life of a SDP fundraiser is even more kanko. But with your generosity, we are able to put up a good fight this coming election. You can donate $10, $20, 50 grand also can. You can also support us by buying a copy or 10 copies of our party manifesto at $40 each. This manifesto will let you know more about the party's vision and policy for this coming election. Go to our online store and shop at yoursdp.org/store. Ouch! You can also bring home 1 or 3 of our favorite Danny Bears at $20 each.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Anand Tambyah. I am a professor of medicine and an infectious diseases doctor. I am pleased to be a candidate for the Singapore Democratic Party. Since childhood, I've been taught about the importance of fairness, justice, and equality. My family was comfortable, but not rich materially, but very rich in values. My father was a diabetes specialist who respected and empowered his nurses and allied health colleagues, especially those who looked after the feet of his patients. And my mother is one of Singapore's pioneer social workers, a tireless advocate for the rights of the disabled. She always told us since we were very young that the truth will come out in the end, and that is a large part of the reason I am standing in this election. I believe that Singaporeans are a talented and capable people. We do care for each other and want to see our country succeed. We deserve to freely enjoy the excellent healthcare, education, and housing we have in Singapore without having to mortgage our futures. We in the SDP have a comprehensive set of proposals covering education, housing, healthcare, population, and most recently, climate change. We need your help to get us into Parliament, to speak up for all of us, to build a democratic Singapore based on justice and equality. As you know, the coming election has the potential to be another watershed election, just like the general election of 2011, which saw the PAP finally sit up and take notice of several issues affecting the daily lives of Singaporeans. Many of us were disappointed by the freak election results of 2015, but most would agree that the conditions surrounding that election are unlikely to be repeated again. The strong performance of the SDP in the Bukit Batok by-election in 2016 supports this idea. The PAP obviously knows this, hence their reckless decision to call for an early election nearly a year before the end of their current term in the middle of a pandemic. The day the writ of election was issued was surreal. In the morning, I walked into a ward of young men with pneumonia. I was wearing full PPE. And in the afternoon, I heard our Prime Minister announce that he had dissolved Parliament. He asked the President to dissolve Parliament, even as there are 100 to 200 new locally transmitted cases of this potentially deadly infectious disease being detected daily. Now, we are used to fighting elections without a level playing field, but the PAP has now taken that to a whole new level. This election, we will not have any physical rallies, even though religious services are allowed for up to 50 people. Rallies are places where we engage the voters, let them buy our merchandise, let them come up and talk to us, and these support the campaign efforts. Rallies are also places where we can respond to the PAP campaign, which is carried extensively on the mainstream media in real time. We have been offered crumbs. The constituency political broadcast is very short, broadcast only on Channel 5, and the scripts have to be submitted 48 hours in advance for vetting by someone who ultimately will report to the Minister of Communications and Information after July 10th. That gives us no chance to respond to the PAP statements in a timely manner and allows all kinds of allegations that they make to go unanswered. And that happened in GE2015, and we really cannot let them do that again. If they do, we run the real risk of an opposition wipeout with a parliament made up of 33 identical thinking PAP members. That would be a disaster for our country. In contrast, our party is going into the election thinking of the future of Singapore. The next generation of young Singaporeans has to deal with the rising costs of living, of housing, of healthcare, and of bringing up children. Many of these costs are unnecessary and imposed by an extractive government. The Young Democrats provide a lot of energy that helps keep the party innovative and creative. You will recall that hours after the Prime Minister's National Day message last year, the SDP came up with a professional video response that was watched tens of thousands of times. That's the kind of professionalism and teamwork embodied by the SDP and our volunteers. The same crew are here in our makeshift studio churning out high-quality videos that are a brave attempt to get the message across in the face of the relentless, dominant narrative coming from the ruling party through the TV and other mass media. You know that the Singapore Democratic Party stands for a democratic Singapore built on justice and equality. These are Singaporean ideals that we pledge every day in school. They are not aspirations, as the previous Prime Minister claimed. They are promises. When the SDP makes a pledge, we keep our word. That is our promise to you, to be one united people, to resist efforts to divide and rule us by generation, the Merdeka generation, Pioneer generation, Majulah generation, or whatever, or worse, by race or religion. The cynical use of a racial quota for our elected presidency without any such efforts for the Navy and the Air Force who protect our lives is a step backwards for our beloved country. The SDP has a slate of policies dealing with housing, healthcare, population, education, and other matters vital to Singaporeans. But we cannot hold the government accountable until we get elected to Parliament. Unfortunately, as you know, the PAP currently controls all the levers with the mainstream media, People's Association, grassroots organizations, and even a well-oiled, heavily funded social media machine. The PAP has also introduced draconian laws which have intimidated many, leading to a worsening of the endemic problem of self-censorship in Singapore. As we have seen in the last general election, this gives PAP candidates a free hand to make wild accusations about alternative party candidates without any accountability. Your logging in and listening to this broadcast is very encouraging to us. We need your support to elect the SDP into Parliament. Give what you can, time, talent, or treasure. We work with whoever shares our values and vision and hope to deny the PAP a 2/3 majority in Parliament. This will prevent them from amending our Constitution according to their whims and fancies. Please share this video with your friends, neighbors, elderly parents, and relatives, many of whom depend on the MediaCorp channels for their news. Singaporeans are hardworking and intelligent people. We need accurate information to make our choices on July the 10th. The SDP manifesto can be summed up into 4 yeses and 1 no. Say yes to suspending the GST at least till 2021 to help us recover from the pandemic. Say yes to retrenchment insurance so people have something to tide them over difficult times, and some funds if they want to choose to start a business when they lose their jobs. Say yes to basic retirement support for low-income seniors so they can live their lives out in dignity without having to collect cardboard or clean toilets just to make ends meet. All these and the other SDP policies are really all about saying yes to putting people first. Finally, this pandemic has taught us that we cannot afford to overcrowd our island, or we risk the spread of yet another infectious disease even after the COVID is gone. We cannot simply bring in 10 million people to artificially prop up the GDP and expect no consequences. We need a sustainable solution to growth which is good for our planet and good for our people. The SDP has all of those in our manifesto, and each of our candidates is committed to making this happen. We only have 11 candidates, so we cannot form the government or push through any legislation to make those policies a reality. But we can use them as the gold standard by which public policy is formulated. In the past, the PAP has borrowed some of our ideas from our policies and others, but watered them down. Many of us will have forgotten, but before 2012 and the SDP healthcare plan, MediShield excluded pre-existing illnesses such as diabetes and cancer. After we put out a call for universal healthcare, MediShield Life now covers pre-existing illnesses, but there are high deductibles and co-payments, which means that it cannot be used in most clinical situations. As a country, we cannot afford to have a parliament with 93 PAP MPs locked into groupthink. Sending 11 SDP MPs into parliament would be a powerful message. It would say that it is time to listen to the people and finally keep our promise to build a democratic society based on justice and equality. We appreciate all that you are doing to help us make that a reality. Majulah Singapura. Thank you.